Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 3 of Sentinels from the Ashes, written by Alex Pagnadell and art by Justin Mason. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens with Drumfire sitting across a table from the warden of Greymalkin Prison, Corina Ellis. And the purpose of this meeting was to have the record made clear about what really happened on the mission they took part in. Because in their field of work, there is always the official record that is used to keep them out of trouble with the public, and then there's the real story, which was what Ellis was looking for to set the record straight for future operations. So with that said, the warden made it clear that whatever Drumfire said within their meeting wouldn't self-incriminate her, so she encouraged her to speak freely. Starting with what exactly went down in Madripoor. Now to this, Drumfire stated, Mr. Trask saw S.H.I.E.L.D.'s intel that the target had gone to ground there after the fall of Krakoa in order to recruit followers. Now the Lowtown area has deep ties to the mutant community, so Mr. Trask figured if the target was going to put a new group of acolytes together, he'll do it there. And on a side note, I like how when the Sentinels were stacking up against the point of entry, Lockstep's hand started to shake, which I think will play a bigger part in the future of this story. But anyway, when the two Sentinels kicked open the door, all they were confronted with was the target, Fabian Cortez, a mutant with the ability of power manipulation and healing, which was exactly what he was doing, healing a young girl. Now at first Cortez just told the intruders that they would have to wait until he had cleared the girl before he helped them, but that was when he realized the gravity of the situation. But just as he realized, Lockstep also stood confused by what he was witnessing. Because according to Cortez, he was just running a clinic on Wednesdays and Fridays where he would help anyone who would walk in. Following that, we jump over to Mr. Trask chiming in on the conversation, saying Fabian Cortez is a beta-level non-entity, so he shouldn't be able to heal humans. But with Lockstep still being confused, he asked if they should just abort the mission. To which Trask stated, no, and he doesn't know why he is playing doctor in the slums, but Cortez is a rabble-rouser, a natural demagogue who could set human-mutant relations back decades if he's allowed to operate freely. So with the order given, Lockstep just didn't feel right obeying his orders, and chose to say this is my team and I'm calling it off. But right when he chose not to pursue Cortez, a civilian jumped out of nowhere and tackled Lockstep to the ground in an attempt to save the doctor. With this distraction in the air, Cortez turned on his heels and took off, and dived through the nearest window. And as he was running, Drumfire called for Sawtooth and Voivod to chase and snatch him up. With the chase on, Ellis then stated it was her understanding that at this point in the chase, Drumfire abandoned her pursuit of the target at this point. To which Drumfire replied by saying, no, she just paused for a bit because her superior officer was compromised. Now to this, Ellis stated that this doesn't sound like Lockstep at all. Which prompted Drumfire to reply that she knew what she saw and he lost situation control and control of everything in general. So with this information given, Ellis then went on to state that she heard that Drumfire has been hitting the mood regulators pretty hard. This was true because Drumfire thought the pills were helping her with her hallucinations, and when Ellis went to ask questions about that, Drumfire declined to talk about it. So with the chase continuing on, Drumfire went on to say Voivod and Sawtooth still had eyes on Cortez, but despite all that, they still couldn't make up for the lost ground. But on the bright side, the two were able to pin him down at a construction site by the water, and just as they thought the chase was over, they noticed that something else was there. The presence was so prominent that they could even feel him before they could even see him, for all the hairs on their necks started to stand up as weird lights danced in front of their eyes. And if Drumfire was being honest, his presence felt like a storm moving in. Because before the team floated Magneto himself, now this prompted Ellis to question if Drumfire was sure about what she witnessed, because according to her intel, her assets in Alaska told her that he was in rough shape at this current moment. But there was no mistake in what she witnessed, because he was able to put 100 pounds of rebar through Voivod like he was lacing a football. So with the fight on, the Sentinels tried their best to fight back against the King, but nothing they did even scratched him. In fact, Magneto just tossed him around like a child to an unwanted toy. And right when all hope was lost, out of nowhere a small distraction came crashing through a wall and into Magneto as Sawtooth wore her armor. But obviously enough, a giant metal suit could only do so much harm to Magneto, because with a single movement of his hand, Sawtooth's armor came apart in pieces, and after clenching his fist, the metal slammed into her like a metallic baseball. Following that situation, Drumfire's entire team was no longer combat ready, and she was officially on her own, and by all rights, she should have been terrified, but somehow the mood regulators kept her head in the game. So with Drumfire channeling the energy around her, she let out a massive blast right into Magneto at point-blank range, and right as it hit him, in return Magneto let out a massive EMP attack to help cover his escape. In fact, it was so big that Ellis stated that her satellites caught it from space, and frankly she is amazed that they survived it. So as the team started to regain consciousness, we found out 3 big events went down. The first was the team was out for several minutes. The second was Lockstep's alignments were offline so he couldn't move at all. And finally, number 3, was Voivod looked like he was grafting. So as Voivod started to talk in binary code, Drumfire lifted her weapon and was about to follow protocol and take him out. And as she aimed her weapon, Lockstep begged her to put her weapon down, but due to the regulators, Lockstep sounded so far away. And before the deed could be done, Sawtooth regained consciousness and knocked Drumfire out cold. Now following the briefing, Drumfire had only one question, and that was if she still had a job, to which Ellis replied by saying her team was grounded until they had finished their investigation. With that said, we then hop over to Lockstep dealing with some personal problems. As he sits in his room, he listens to a message from his son talking about how he said that they were going to come up with the money on their own, but to their surprise, a man was on their lawn last night and now his mother is talking about getting a gun. Now this wasn't something Lockstep could sit back and do nothing about, so with anger in his heart he asked his AI assistant to help him find the people behind his family issues. So with Lockstep about to set off on his crusade, we then jump over deep underground to a cell where the quote-unquote Voivod was grafting. And when we get there, we see Trask standing in the room with him, and to our surprise, he tells him to stop the gibberish because it is just them now alone. Which was exactly what he did, and then the first thing he asked was if Trask was going to kill him. To which Trask responded by saying he wanted to see the full grafting himself, and more importantly he wanted to know who was in charge, him or the boy. Now this made Voivod reply by saying you shouldn't be so binary in his thinking, for he is still Voivod, and as for Trask he will just be his shameful little secret in the woodshed. So with that said, Trask tried to justify his actions by saying they were trying to shut him down alongside his Sentinels program. But see, Voivod just replied by saying he guessed it was one too many grafts he suppose. And then he went on to say, just think about it, if you just take off the inhibitor collar for more than 30 seconds then his brain will turn into banana pudding, but he may have seen this coming. Now this hit Trask the wrong way, because on the next page, he slapped Voivod right in the face. With Trask's frustration evident, Voivod still continued to speak and said, what does Trask think they will do when they find out where the nanotech really came from? Now this was a comment that hit Trask to the core much harder. It was so bad that he had to retreat from the room just to regain his composure. So as he exits the room, Voivod points out that a rotten apple like Lawrence has no choice but to fall from a rotten tree. So with their conversation over, on the last panel of this page, we see Sawtooth checking in on her friend, Voivod, as Trask walks away. So with Trask having a lot to think about and Sawtooth peeking her nose where it shouldn't be, we then transition to Lockstep paying a visit to the loan sharks that were extorting his family. And at first, he tried to pay the people with what money he had, but unfortunately, the loan sharks wanted way more than he had available and made the big mistake in attacking him. So as Lockstep lay on the floor, he decided to let the sharks know who exactly they were messing with, and in a blink of an eye, he summoned his nanotech and went to work on the people who thought they had the power. And on the last page, we see a hint of Lockstep potentially grafting as he completely ripped through the remaining loan sharks, and with that said, this issue of Sentinels comes to an end. Now down in the comment section below let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.